Hello. So when I was a kid and I first heard the term musical chairs, I thought it was going to be a lot more exciting than it turned out to be. Right? It's just a game, kind of a dumb game, actually. The chairs aren't musical at all. I was similarly disappointed with the term baggage carousel. And I hate to admit this, but Nazi party. When you don't know, sounds kind of... The problem with musical chairs is that it's a terrible game and it's not fun, it's just stressful, right? I'm not sure why we do this to children, unless it's to try to get them prepared for adult life somehow. Because it's like that, right? Especially at the beginning, everyone wants a chair and there's not enough chairs. In the game, it can only last, seconds, but in real life, it lasts a long time. For me, it lasted 7 years. And it started the day I graduated from college. I had two problems. First was I had a BS degree, and I mean that in both senses of the term. I had a degree in art. I think we can all agree that that's kind of a BS degree. And my minor didn't help either. I was a creative writing minor, so art and writing. And for me, it was always comedy writing, so art and comedy. Those are the two things I wanted to do. And that brings me to my second problem. This was in the rural South. I grew up in Texas and then later North Carolina. And I'm not going to say that it's harder to pursue art and comedy in the rural South, but I will say it's kind of harder. It's pretty much harder. But I didn't really know that, so I just took off after it. And I was painting all the time, and I was trying to sell paintings to friends and family and trying to get in galleries. And I was doing comedy at the same time. I had a comedy team, and we would do open mic nights, and we'd do shows everywhere we could. And eventually, the guys in my team, got real jobs. I was on my own trying to stand up and writing plays, and nothing ever worked, and nothing ever made me a dime. So I was always, going from one crappy day job to the next. I was a waiter, obviously, but worse, I was a waiter at Applebee's. I got fired for crying. I was more suited for outdoor work, so I did construction, and I did asphalt paving and sealing. This was in 100-degree weather, 100% humidity in the South. Not good. The best crappy job I ever had was actually working as a night shift at a convenience store, gas station out by the highway. You know these, right? Yeah, I worked there at the weekends, went on at midnight, and quit at 7 a.m. It was a great job for me. Sure, I had to mop. And I had to throw out the garbage, and I had to clean the coolers, and I had to do the bathrooms. But I got that done in a couple hours, and I had the rest of the night to myself. And I had a stack of books, and I had a bunch of notebooks and sketchbooks, and I had endless coffee, free Slurpees. I even had those greasy hot dog, on the rotisserie if I ever wanted one. Never did, but I'll tell you something about the hot dogs. I never touched them. I never took old ones off or put new ones on. I never saw anyone else do that. It is quite possible that those weenies came with the machine. So take that with you and use it accordingly. So that's basically how I spent my 20s. And you'd expect that, trying to pursue these things. You're 22, 23, 24, 25... 26, undateable. 27, 28, oh God, 29, I'm 29 years old. I'm still doing this stuff, and nothing's working. And I'm starting to think, maybe it's not going to work. It doesn't work for most people. So I'm 29 years old. I don't have a place to do what I believe I can do. It's midnight, and I'm doing what I'm always doing at that time of night, watching Letterman. Me and Letterman. He's like my best friend. This is like a ritual for me. And so for some reason, I pick up the remote control and I start switching the channels. And I watch Letterman so religiously that I don't even know what's on the other channels. It's like watching TV in a foreign country. It's like, what is this? That guy's got a big chin. Who is that guy? Anyway, so I land on Nightline, and they're doing a special about New Yorker cartoonists. And this is because the New Yorker is about to publish its first ever cartoon issue, an issue all dedicated to cartoons. And I look at this, and I'm watching it, and it's weird to say, but I actually sense the significance of it, so I grabbed a tape and put it in the VCR. You guys remember? Some of you. And I, recorded it, and I watched that tape over and over again, and I freeze-framed it, to show what kind of pens the artists were using. And I was thinking, this is kind of a thing. And why didn't I think of this before? I mean, most of you guys grew up, I guess, aware of the New Yorker. I told you I was in Texas. My family didn't subscribe to the New Yorker. We weren't communists. So this was kind of a new thing for me. And cartooning, I'd never thought about being a cartoonist. I was interested in art and comedy, but cartooning was to me that, the sort of greeting card cartoons, the big googly-eyed. I never really wanted to do that. Still don't. But this was different. This was the two things I liked kind of mashed together. The jokes were good jokes, like Woody Allen one-liners, conceptual Stephen Wright jokes that I loved. And the drawings, they weren't all like typical cartoon characters that all looked the same. Each one was unique. It was art. It was comedy and art. So I went out and I got this issue, the cartoon issue, and I pored over the pages and just studied it. And the more I looked at it, I was like, this might be a thing. And I remember there was one cartoonist that stood out to me. It was George Booth. Do you guys know his work? Yeah, okay, good. It stood out to me not because I loved the jokes, which I did, and the drawings, which I did, but because it just existed in this magazine. This rural, sort of crazy voice somehow fit in a fancy, sophisticated City Slicker magazine. So I thought maybe there's a chance for me. And in that magazine, in that cartoon issue, there was an advertisement, little thing about this big, announcing a cartoon contest. The New Yorker was co-sponsoring it with the Algonquin Hotel. And this was way before the caption contest in the back of the magazine. You had to do both parts. You had to do a cartoon about, hotel life. I didn't know what that meant, still don't, but there was no question in my mind that I was going to enter this contest. I was like, this is kind of great. I'm writing jokes, I'm doing drawings. So I went to the library and checked out, a big stack of those cartoon collections, the dusty, big, huge books, and I pored over them and just kind of gave myself a crash course in New Yorker cartooning. And a few weeks later, when the deadline came, I sent off my ideas. And a couple weeks after that, I found out I was one of the 3 finalists. Right, I know. And so me and a high school buddy got to go to New York City. They put us up in the Algonquin Hotel. And, I don't know if you've been in there, but it's like wood paneling. There's the oak round table, the lampshades, are copper. And we didn't actually say it out loud, but I'm pretty sure our faces and the clothes we were wearing were like, golly. And this is another thing. When you get in there, at least then, the wallpaper, they had custom wallpaper made out of New Yorker cartoons. And I'm just kind of overwhelmed by all this. So the big day comes, the next night. I put on my good duds, and we go down to the event. And I meet Roz Chast, and I meet Sam Gross, some of the other cartoonists. And I meet Bob Mankoff, who is the cartoon editor. And he's also the juror of this contest. And he is just about to, give the final prize. And it turns out to be me. Thank you. And what I win is a giant styrofoam check that I get to give to charity. I thought the same thing. And I'm standing here holding it. We're posing for some photos, and Bob is over on this end, and I'm on this end, and I'm thinking, I bet my construction worker fingers can beat his sissy literary fingers. I can yank this thing and make a run for it. But then I thought, it's a revolving door. I don't know how to navigate that. Even if I got through there, it's not going to fit in the slot. I would have to lob it over the plexiglass or something. This is not going to work. So I reluctantly let go of the check. And my real prize came about an hour later. We were hobnobbing. And by that, I mean I was over in the corner alone and sipping my sarsaparilla. And Bob comes over, Bob Mankoff, and he asked me, so, have you ever submitted cartoons to the New Yorker before? He called it the magazine, because that's what you do. The magazine. And I said, I resisted the temptation to say, not only have I never submitted cartoons, these cartoons are the first I've ever done in my 20 years. But I instead just said, no. And he said 2 magic words. He said, you should. And he might as well have said, open sesame. It was this whoosh of air, and the big iron door of the New Yorker, cracked open just this much. And you best believe I slipped the tip of my boot into that gap faster than a caffeinated jackrabbit. I just went full Texan. Sorry about that. Everyone okay? It's exciting, though. So I went home, and all I did was cartooning. No more art, no more comedy. From now on, it was the mashup of these 2 things. My 2 greatest passions, and up till now, my 2 greatest failures. And I, working on cartoons all the time. At the end of the week, I sent in my 3 best cartoons to the New Yorker. Week 1, nothing. Week 2, nothing. Week 3, nothing. Week 4, still nothing. Week 5, I get a letter from the New Yorker telling me I'd sold a cartoon to the New Yorker magazine. Yeah. I don't know if you can really understand how it felt, but if you can imagine being on your feet for 7 years, walking and working and waiting, and then somebody pushing up a big, fluffy, comfy chair. That's pretty much how it felt. And after you sell your first cartoon, you're allowed to come into the office to drop off your work. So I did that. I came all the way to New York City, and I sat across the desk from Bob, and I handed him my 3 cartoons, and that's when he told me that everyone else was doing 10 a week. Good to know. I went home, and I was determined to, impress him. So I did 15 a week, every week, for the first year. And in that first year, I sold 4. But I was thrilled because I'd finally found a place to do what I thought I could do. And I remember the real moment that I felt that. It was that first trip to the New Yorker. I'd gone up, and I'd seen Bob, and I was on my way down in the elevator, all by myself, grinning. And I like to think that somewhere in the basement there's like archives with a videotape of the security tape, just this kid going, maybe dancing, I don't remember. Anyway, I got to the bottom, to the lobby, and the doors open up, and I'm face to face with George Booth. I recognize his picture from the magazine that I saw, the cartoon issue. And I instantly, just kind of reach my hand out, and I say, "Hi, I'm Matt Diffee. I just sold my first cartoon." And he says the perfect thing to me. He takes my hand and shakes it and kind of lifts an eyebrow, kind of goofy like that, and he says, "Well, welcome aboard." And that's the exact moment that I knew I'd found my seat. Thank you very much.